For anyone out there that's listening and you feel that same way when you're working, where it's like, why am I investing my time and energy in this? Like, believe that there's a different route. Sometimes you just got to say, fuck what everyone says and take a risk. And, as you grow older, you learn how to take more calculated risks.
Welcome to Theoretically Speaking, hosted by Victoria Herrera and Brent Javier. Produced by Next Theory. From the Philippines to the world, this is an interview series with creative entrepreneurs, taste makers, and change agents. We dissect the journey they took from dream to reality, exchanging stories from the past, motivations in the present, to ideas for the future.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to Theoretically Speaking. I'm your host, Brent Javier, alongside my co-host, Victoria Herrera.
Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to our show. It's going to be another great episode. Brent and I are really excited about our guests and who we've been interviewing. We're getting a lot of great insights and just a lot of great lessons while we're here in quarantine. Brent, what would you say is one of the reasons why you wanted to get our next guest on the show?
Well, our next guest, I met him a couple times. He's someone that has such big energy. He's a great person, easy to talk to. And it's just his journey. It was something that I wanted to dive deeper into and let people learn from his experiences and what he's doing.
Yeah, and absolutely pick his brain, get to know him better. He's someone we've seen out in events, out in the club. So it's really nice to also have conversations with someone that you see, again, in the scene, but on another level, right? So to formally introduce our next guest, he has over 17 years of experience in the game. You may know him as February Bank or Chris Catral, and he has transformed a recreational sport into a valuable occupation. He is at the cross-section of various sounds that somewhat remind you of Andre 3000 or Kendrick Lamar in the musical charisma, while having a smooth switch up between singing and rapping that remind you of a young Mos Def. Expanding on his craft has led to opportunities for mentoring artists around the globe, which has enabled him to give back to the creative community. Right now, February Bank currently resides in the Philippines, where he has rooted himself in a country where he's born as he continues to make music from the heart.
How's your mental health, given the time that it is right now with everything that's going on? How you holding up?
Well, thank you for asking. It's a good question. I'm dealing with mental health a little bit different right now, because before this whole COVID pandemic and the lockdown, I had already gone through a really dark stage for a long time. I saw Vicky crossing the street in BGC one of these days, and I even opened up about that. Yo, I'm not in a good place, trying to bounce back. So when you go through a long extended period of dark days, and then you finally climb out of it and you start to feel better about yourself and your environment and your productivity, list goes on and on and on. You look at a time like this and it's not really that bad, So, of course, everyone's going through it because it's a life change and we all try to stay positive. So, yeah, just like any other normal person, you have good days and you have really bad days where some days just really seem like forever, especially if you get fueled by human contact.
You're very sociable and
being social and stuff. There's only so much that we can accomplish virtually. There's just that human element that's missing, and it's hard to control your thoughts and not getting too deep into your thoughts these days, right? But I've learned how to coach that along the way. Hey, Chris, think on the positive side. I don't really do things to distract me necessarily, but it's really just about just telling myself yo, it's all good. If you feel sad, feel sad. If you feel bummed out, feel bummed out. No matter what, it's gonna pass. I have confidence in that based on experience. But yeah, overall, I'm cool. Thank you. How about you guys? Am I supposed to ask you guys questions? Can I do that?
No.
Yeah, you're a host too, Chris.
Yeah.
I guess one by one, just briefly, how are you guys dealing with how it is? And then, looking towards May 15th as okay, there might be a few changes, and how you think the industries that you guys energy in, how you think it's going to be within the first 3 months.
Vicky, do you want to start off?
Yeah. That's a good question. And it's kind of something we've been reflecting on as well since lockdown started, since March, right? And just this very podcast is a result of that brainstorming as well. Just us trying to figure out, okay, what are the next steps? Will we still have events? Will we still, have these types of activations or projects? We can't control everything. And to be quite honest, it's a bit too early to make permanent decisions because there's a lot of things still up in the air, right? Like we really don't know how GCQ will be. We know how it will be in our head according to the rules in flyers that we see online, but really stepping out into the world and we're not sure how it's going to be. We're not sure how people will react. But one of the things that Brent and I talked about in the company, we can control ourselves and how we can channel our creativity and how we can keep that alive, right? I mean, just being on this podcast, it was kind of like, let's still keep our souls alive creatively by still doing things we believe in, right? So just us talking to our guests, connecting with people, building good relationships with people, those are still part of our values in Next Theory, and we want that alive. So I used to say this a long time ago, even if the form changes, the form of how you're going to express something, at least keep the energy alive. It may not be events this year anymore. I know we did like events last year. Maybe that may not be our future, but what we stand for and our energy and what we believe in and our values, like we can find a way to channel that into something else,
Right.
Thank you, everybody.
I mean, picking up where Vicky was speaking on, I don't think there's gonna be events. All this May 15th stuff, like I think they should push it back, but I don't know. We'll see how things go. I think there's going to be another spike if they start opening stuff too early. But I guess until proven wrong, right? A lot of people are losing jobs and stuff. It's not a happy situation for everyone. But on a personal note, like I've been here with my family, and it's not something I get to do a lot of the time throughout the year. Half glass full. I've been able to be with my parents like almost every day for like over a month now, and that's great for me. So like a lot of things suck, but I'll take that definitely as a positive. I'm happy that I'm here with my parents. I get to spend time. I'm gonna lead it into the next thing that I just want to talk about. I want to talk about it later, but since we talked about since I mentioned parents, like I know your parents were in the Philippines recently. Are they still there by any chance, or did they leave?
It was weird. So they didn't reschedule their ticket. They had a planned return flight back to the US on March 16th. And I think that was the very first day they issued the lockdown, or at least the transportation ban. That's when like the Grabs and the buses, all transportation stopped that day. So they kind of left at a good time.
Oh, okay. So they were able to get out.
Yeah.
And go back.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they were here. They were visiting me for a couple of months. And just to kind of paint a picture on the timeline of like how perfect that was, I was using my parents coming back to stay with me in my condo. I was using that as a goal to snap out of my depression, right? Where I'm like, okay, mom and dad are going to be here. I don't want them to worry, number one. I don't want them to see me this way. I don't want them to think like that I've failed or I'm not doing anything good for myself here in the Philippines. So right when they got here, it didn't work out that way. I was trying to push for me to mentally snap out of it by then. But what helped was them being here, and like my dad popped the question right away. Like, yo, Chris, anong plano mo? Like less than 12 hours of being with me, popped the question because he was worried. Like the majority, for those that don't know, I was born in America, born in California. Both my parents are born and raised in the Philippines, did not know each other in this country, but met in California. I decided to move here just to, number one, say that I lived in the Philippines during this lifetime. And number two, to continue pursuing my dreams and living out my life here, right? So when people ask me this question, like, yo, Chris, like, are you there for good? I still don't know, because I'm still kind of going through this thing where I've been here almost 4 years now. And the longer that I've been here, the less I feel a part of the country. So I'm not sure why. I feel less connected to my people. I feel less connected to the Philippines. And I'm leaning more towards my friends in America, the American culture, American music to like fuel me in the country. So I find that kind of interesting, right? You would think the longer you stay in a country, you feel more connected to that country, but it's been the opposite for me. So I'm trying to figure out why that is right now. And maybe it's just about reconnecting with your roots. Like my long-term friends are not around me. My close 99% of my family are not in this country. So when you are feeling down or you feeling lost or confused, you usually lean towards your rocks, your support system. And that's what I sometimes I feel like I have nobody to even call here. Right. So I'm like at that point right now. So now it's like, okay, well, if I feel that way, connect with the people that really know me, that really have stuck with me through me being a good person, bad person, making good decisions, bad decisions, but always stuck with me. So I haven't found a core here that I feel like could match to my core back.
Just speaking from my own experience, I think that's always a battle that, and Vicky obviously also grew up in the US.
I mean, yeah, but I moved here when I was very young already, you know. It was more my older siblings who, when they moved here, they experienced that culture shock.
Yeah.
And having to adjust to Philippine culture when they were raised so Americanized. But I could see the differences in how some mannerisms are, culturally, how some things are. I do know that growing up here, one of the hardest things was that if you were different, it felt uncomfortable. Just with people looking or talking about you, or even if I said something with an accent, I would hear it being mimicked around me. That was what I kind of struggled with growing up, just being different, because I was so used to being exposed to different cultures at home with my older siblings being very American and that sort of thing. But I grew up in a local school, so I had crazy cultural references in my head and still trying to find ways to identify with not like just what I identified with. Anyway, Brent moved here much later, right? In your 20s? And then...
Well, I've been in the Philippines for 17 years. So like you've been here for 4 years now. I'm telling you that feeling might not go away, because like every couple of years or every once in a while, I'm just like, yo, should I really be here, or should I go home, get a normal job even, or, you know, something more steady? But there's always something that keeps you in the Philippines. I don't know. It's like held you there, right? And then once it has its grasp on you, it's hard to break that grasp. At least for me and like most of my friends that have grown up abroad, whether it's, you know, Canada, US, Australia, if you stay here longer than 4 years, you're going to get this feeling again. So I don't know. It's just always an inner battle that you just figure out for yourself. Like, is this the right move?
With the both of you, like moving to the Philippines as adults, how was that transition for you into the country, like in your first year?
For me, this goes way back to growing up, because so my mom worked for the USPS, United States Postal Service, right? She started off like as a mail carrier, just going house to house, delivering mail into mailboxes. And her just being a hard worker and a go-getter, she just started getting different opportunities to climb up that corporate ladder. Being born in California, I moved a lot growing up because my mom got different job opportunities. And instead of being around family and staying in her comfort zone, she took this. And her mentality was, you know what, while I'm young, I can make more money, get a new job in a new area, and like explore the United States with my family. So from California, I moved to Billings, Montana. And at a young age, like I love sharing the story because like in California, you know, it's so diverse. So you're around so many different Asians, so many minorities, right? So you never really think about your cultural background, the way you talk, the food you eat, the way you look. But when I moved to Montana, which no offense to anybody else out there, it felt like it was 99% rednecks. So I was around a lot of white people. And at a young age, I experienced racism. So when you think America, you always think kind of black-white racism, you know, white people being racist against black people. But like I felt it as an Asian American because Filipinos and the Filipino culture wasn't really dominant as it was, or present like it was in California, in other states. They thought, okay, who's this chinky boy, right? He has chinky eyes, this guy's Chinese. So, growing up, I would hear like these words like chink and gook and Chinaman and like, oh, do they eat like weird animals? You got to take off your shoes before you go inside or you get punished. I would hear this stuff from kids, and no matter how confident you are, how popular you are, how strong you are inside, when you hear that as a kid, you start to get scared. You don't know how to deal with that type of hate or that type of judgment. Then you start to question yourself like, damn, maybe I am different. Some people get ashamed of like their cultural background, where I've seen it before with other Asian kids, like, hey, mom, can you drop me off at the corner? Just because they didn't want to see like maybe their car or like maybe how their mom looked or how she dressed. Parents would like drop off their kids like away from all of these white kids. Growing up dealing with racism at a young age, it like really helped me to be strong as an individual. But the reason why that happened, I believe, is like because I was so active as a kid. I was blessed to do all these extracurricular activities. And when you're growing up as a child, what's important is if you like do things and you do things well, whether it's karate, swimming, singing, you're good on the basketball court, whatever it is. I was so active with extracurricular activities and actually good at the things that I was putting my mind to. And that kind of put me into this world of, Chris is a cool kid. So that helped me break away from people judging me and like feeding me with racial comments growing up. Sorry, I'm going to keep this going. I'll try to speed it up. But like from Montana, I moved to Hartford, Connecticut. And that was different because East Coast lifestyle. And I lived in a neighborhood where it was literally just white and black people. That was interesting to get that whole New England lifestyle. And what was hard was I moved to the East Coast my very first year of high school. And that's a tough transition from 8th grade, from middle school to high school. And like not knowing anyone at all, that one was tough. Moving from California to Montana, I was still young, elementary school, but from the middle school to high school, going to a new state and trying to make new friends, that was pretty challenging. But, I was an athlete growing up and I was good at sports, and that's what kind of got me into the cool crowd. Yeah, from there, I moved back to California. Also, I moved to Seoul, Korea. I lived there for 5 years. To answer your question now, I was used to pressing reset, not knowing anyone, and then meeting people and making my own little circle and making new friends since I was really, really young. And so coming to the motherland where I am Filipino, I eat Filipino food, like Tagalog and the culture growing up, it was a piece of cake. Yeah, sorry that was a bit long, but thanks for listening to that.
No, it's very interesting. I see a lot of similarities. Like I jumped not from like state to state, but like I went from school to school. I went to like IS schools. Just a lot of similarities. Also, I excelled in sports, and that was my platform as well to show off, to make the girls look. That's what you use sports for, pretty much. But yeah, thanks for sharing that story about you moving around.
Yeah, I mean,
and eventually ending up here in the Philippines, right?
And I'm proud to share that because, like, when I look at, not to say that I'm better, but when I look at a lot of the people in my life, there's a lot of people who have stayed in the same neighborhood, same street their entire life. So when I look back at it, I'm like, wow, I thank my mom for being so gutsy to be like, you know what, I'm going to take my family, pack up and leave and like explore. But now like a personal side story to that is just like, I have one sibling, her name is Jessica, shout out my little sister who's out in California. So it's just me and my sister growing up. And for me, with my personality, I adapted to that well, right? And my sister, who wasn't as outgoing, was more of an introvert, didn't really know what she wanted to do with herself, and wasn't active with extracurricular activities too. Like, I think it put her in a position where when she got older, she started kind of drifting to crowds that weren't the best crowds for her. And so I'm not sure if that's a true answer, but I feel like my sister didn't adapt to these changes well, where she never really built a proper foundation for herself as a girl and now a woman. Like I said, I give thanks to my mom for giving me that opportunity, but moving around, as great as it sounds, it's really just not for everybody.
I know that you were already doing music in Korea and you were doing music in the States, but why did you choose to get into music in the Philippines? Was there something you saw?
Okay, so when I moved here, which is July 2016, that was my third time here in the Philippines. First time was in 2001, and that was with like my mom and dad, aunts and uncle, like a family trip, right? Mm-hmm. So that was my first experience of the Philippines. The next time was in 2013, and I was living in Seoul, South Korea at the time, and that was my first time alone. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna go to the Philippines on my own for the first time. And so I figured Korea is close to the Philippines. Let me take advantage of this opportunity. During that trip, I was walking around in the same area I'm in now. I live here in Taguig, BGC. And I was walking around and I'm not sure if you guys have ever experienced something like this, but I had a voice inside of me kind of just say, Chris, you gotta move here someday. And I had this spiritual epiphany. And so I said, you know what? I'm gonna make this work. It's crazy how life works where like all the pieces kind of fit together. Sometimes it's not necessarily right then and there. It took 3 years for everything to come together. And I made the move out here. And it was because of that moment in 2013 where I felt connected to my roots, my blood, my history, the ground. You know, I remember just feeling the grass after I heard that voice in my head. I'm like, this is home. Never let go of that. Got detoured, made some decisions that like maybe I shouldn't have, but I ended up making my way here in 2016.
How would you describe your musical journey since you first moved here?
Oh, wow. Okay. I had no expectations. I knew because I did the same thing in Korea, where I moved to Korea, not because of a music opportunity. It's because I wanted to get out of my comfort zone, and I ended up teaching English. As an English teacher in a country that doesn't speak English really, I was like, okay, well, number one, I have to adapt to this culture, but I really love music, so I'm going to make music on the side. So I kept making music on the side, started off with like open mics, ended up like getting signed to a Korean label called Aftermoon, ended up quitting my day job. Coming into the Philippines and having that experience already, I was like, let me just play it by ear. The cool thing, I got to share this because it's such a cool story. So I'm going to rewind a little bit. So when I was in California, I'm from the Silicon Valley. So I was working for a tech company that specialized in 3PL, third-party logistics and e-commerce, right? Like shipping and storage solutions for e-commerce purchases, e-commerce websites. Now, it was lunchtime. And I'm in the sales department. So I'm walking to the kitchen. And on the way to the kitchen, it's the conference room, which is all glass windows. And on the dry erase wall, like here, it's like right here, it said Manila. That's all it said. It said Manila. So I'm walking there, I see Manila on the board. I'm like, what the fuck is this? So I went to my sales director. I was like, yo, Haas, why does it say Manila in the conference room? They're like, oh, we're building a branch out in the Philippines. Keep in mind, at this point, I'm not making music. I haven't been creative. So I don't even know what I want to do with music, but I knew eventually I wanted to make music. And what I just told you earlier, I had that epiphany where I'm like, I got to move to the Philippines. So now after he told me that they were going to branch out to the Philippines, it was like, ding, got this idea. So I created a brand new job position for myself. And I knocked on the vice president of sales, his door, and went into his office and pitched it to him. I said, you know what? I'm Filipino. I've been doing good in sales. Here's my numbers. When I move out to the Philippines, here's my job. This is what it looked like for the first 3 quarters, right? This is my role and responsibilities. Boom, gave me the job, right? So now this company is flying me all the way here. And I'm going to be on U.S. salary, direct deposit to my U.S. bank account, living in the Philippines. And I'm like, yes, this is my ticket in. Now, the fucked up thing is I knew before I even created this job position, I knew I was going to fucking quit. I knew already. I'm like, I'm going to utilize this shit to get me into the country. I'm going to milk the company for all the money that I can, right? Because I know once I become an artist full time, that money's not going to come in consistently, but I'm going to leave. And so that's what happened. I basically hustled to get my ass over here. I'm talking about it with so much passion and proud, but I mean, like, yo, that's G shit. You know what I mean? I'm like, yo. Yeah.
Are we smiling right now?
I mean, like, what do you guys think of that story? Like, I saw Manila, the only thing on the board. And I feel like if I didn't have this corporate job and then stick with this corporate job, you wouldn't be talking to me right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a way to connect the dots. We always tell people, like, sometimes you connect the dots in hindsight, how everything worked out, right? But just to kind of clarify it, was it the States and then Manila and then Seoul and then back to Manila, or how's the timeline?
After college, I started working, and just to share this, because it's a cool thing to share, I worked with a lot of kids. So, I was a youth specialist, so I created like after school programs for elementary and middle school students. So that way after school, they can do their homework, they could play. It was basically to kill time before the parents would pick up the kids. So I had that type of job, and also I was a personal trainer at a gym called Bali Total Fitness. So I have a personal training background as well. I lost both those jobs, moved to Korea, stayed in Seoul for about maybe 4.5 years, went back to the States, got a regular job. That's what happened. And I work for crazy companies. Like, people think, oh, Chris lives in BGCs, American, oh, me pera siya. Like, you know what I mean? Nah, like, I worked at Tesla in the, like, assembly line. You know what I mean? Building the chargeable batteries for the Model T, like, standing up, like, I was wiring, move, wiring, slide, you know? And I did that for 12 hours a day, where, like, we had time lunches. You would hear this bell going, brrr, and I would have to run to the cafeteria, because if you didn't run and get to the fucking microwave, half of your lunch is gone. So I ran there just so I could warm up my food. Like, that's how quick our lunches were. So I come from, like, that's why I connect. Like, when people wonder why I always talk to the guards, to these lower income people here, it's like, yo, I'm trying to let them know, just because you see me living in BGC, you got to understand, in a different country, I was check to check struggling just like you guys. It's me trying to fight as a foreigner. No, we're the same. We are the same. I'm not trying to prove myself to the rich people or people in the upper class. I'm trying to prove myself to the lower class. Like, yo, I come from that. I come from that struggle.
Just speaking on that real quick, the upper class in the Philippines are on another level in a lot of ways. Like, growing up, like, same thing. Like, I flipped burgers, cleaned washrooms. I worked at a laboratory doing pipette, like 50 million of these, like checking blood samples and all kinds of just normal jobs, right? The rich people, they next level. Everything's taken care of. Like, some of them don't pay for their cell phone bills until, like, they're 30, all kinds of stuff. But I get you.
We can go on a whole nother episode on that type of stuff. So, but I get you, man. I get the frustration.
I think, like, part of me is a bit guilty, because I feel like, oh my God, like, I was raised here. Like, no, because, like, my older siblings would always say, I don't think we're, like, the most wealthy. I think my mom worked super hard to make sure we're comfortable. But I do know that in the States, when we were living there, it was really tough on our family. And my sisters and my brother, they'd really struggle from working in the bakery. And then John would, when he was like 13 or something.
Yes.
So, yeah, we'll get those stories from John when he's growing up. But one of the things that I see a lot, and it's something that was really talked about in my family, and I see it when both of you are talking, it's just that hustle mentality that, you know, whatever job you're given, do it the best way you can. Would that be something that you feel influenced how you approach music now, Chris?
That's a good question. That one's hard. I guess where I'm going is, it's because I understand the feeling of having a regular job, like where you gotta wake up every day, you gotta get in your car, you gotta be in traffic, you gotta stay in an office or inside of a building the whole day and then go home. With my last job, you know, I can talk about so many, but let's just go to my last job. This was, you know, my corporate job before I moved to the Philippines. This is coming back from my experience in Korea. So I would be at my desk, and of course, like, I want to show off some of the things that I did in Korea. So I pull up YouTube, SoundCloud, you know, play some of my music on Apple. And, like, my coworkers would be like, yo, Chris, this is so dope. And they would all follow up with, what the fuck happened? Because to them, it was like I made it, or I was on a roll. That would get to my head. You know, I'm such an emotional guy. I cry a lot. Maybe it's just the passion inside of me, or I'm so sensitive to many extremes. But I would go into the office and I would straight up cry. And I would ask myself, like, why am I here? You know, for anyone out there that's listening and you feel that same way when you're working, where it's like, why am I investing my time and energy in this? Like, believe that there's a different route. Sometimes you just got to say, fuck what everyone says and take a risk. And, you know, as you grow older, you learn how to take more calculated risks. But it's good to look back at your time and your decisions and your life and say, you know what, I tried. Because I think there's so much that can happen, whether you feel like you made it or you failed, but just the fact that you took the risk and said, you know what, I tried, even just for a little bit. And I feel good about that decision. I don't think anyone's going to be like, no, I regret trying. I've never heard a story like that.
I think too, like, those experiences, like, they give you a different perspective. I really believe it's true that, like, traveling or living in another place makes you smarter in another way that textbooks can't really teach, because you get to, like, see how culture is and, like, realize that where you grew up, it's not exactly how it is over wherever.
Yeah.
I don't know. I want to ask you, like, what does the word home mean to you now? Because like you've been, like you said, different states in the US, Korea, Philippines. Where is home to you?
Well, you guys are asking amazing questions because I've been thinking about what you just asked lately. Like, where is home? And what I realize is that home has to start within. For you to understand that you're okay with yourself, and that way you're not feeling lost. That way you're not yearning for something or looking for something that isn't physically present in your life or in your life at the moment. If I'm comfortable with myself, then I understand, you know what? Like, you got to remind yourself you're loved. If you feel like you don't have friends or family, like every person has somebody that cares about. It doesn't even have to be friends and family. There's strangers that are putting that energy towards your life. Just to understand that you're being loved, then you start to realize that home is where love is. It can extend from where I'm sitting right now in my own personal space, I think of as a sacred place, but it extends to all of these beings that show me love. To answer, where is it? I think instead of looking externally, we have to look internally, and then you can figure that out for yourself. So it starts within for me.
I want to go back to something you said earlier about your core group. Also, home is where you have like your support. Is Philippines home? Like, because you said you weren't sure really if you have your support group there, your core group.
I don't know. I mean, I can't, and it sucks that I can't answer that. The main reason why is because family is very, very important to me. If the majority of my family is not around me, as you start to get older, you know, of course, career and being financially and starting a family, these are goals of mine. When I think about me being a ninong, or just me being the cool uncle and not being around like my friends and family's kids growing up and missing out on so many birthday parties and events. It's like, do I really want to miss 99% of these events just because I want to live in the Philippines, my dreams? So that's the thing that's like, I'm being pulled from time to time, but because I'm in it right now and I got the wheels in motion, you can't pull me out of where I'm at right now. So yes, I mean, in the literal sense, yes, this is home because I live here. This is where I'm at. But when I think future and long term, it's really, really question mark, question mark, question mark. And maybe you guys can relate to this. It's like these types of moments you don't want to miss forever. And it's not like most people don't have the financial flexibility to just be like, oh, you know what? My niece is having a birthday party. Let me fly to California real quick. And so that's the biggest thing is like, do I want to be away from them forever or for the majority of my life? We'll figure that out in the next couple of years because, you know, I told my dad, like, give me about a year and a half, and we'll come back and have this transparent conversation whether I'm going to be okay in the Philippines or not. So I'm praying, putting the energy out there. I'm glad to have you guys on board. Just know on my end, like, I see what's going to happen. I feel what's going to happen. I'm very confident in every single one of these people that are here in the chat that are going to help me out. So just know I'm going to reciprocate that type of energy, and let's pray for opportunities and blessings moving forward.
With regards to like definitions, and I know you want to take your music career to another level, what does success mean to you where you feel like, okay, I feel good?
I think all musicians, when they start, they have this idea of becoming big, rich, famous, popular. When you first start, like, why wouldn't you think that way? It's all based on attention on you. Hey, listen to what I have to say. Hey, look at the way I move. Hey, look at the way I dress. So you want that attention. I think every young artist that starts wants to get to that point. For me, I've been doing it for 15 years now. So many ups and downs. I even stopped and thought that was the end of my road when it comes to being an artist and pursuing music. But now it's about, I've never been able to travel to different countries. Like, to be able to travel to different countries, perform my songs, and like you've seen it with the artists that all of you guys listen to, you'll have a live concert where the artist doesn't even have to sing the fuck anymore. He can just let everyone in the audience, I want to get to that point where I can say I traveled the world and I had people sing along to my songs in that capacity where I could just point the microphone out to the audience and have them take over. So that to me is the ultimate goal for this specific time. That's the next goal, not ultimate goal. That's the next goal moving forward. You have to build a lot of courage because performing live is, even around your friends, that's nerve-wracking. You know, to be able to like hop on a plane from city to city, perform back to back, you know, night after night. I haven't experienced that yet. Maybe like 2 or 3 nights, but if you're pulling an entire tour where it's back to back to back to back to back, I don't know what that's like. I'm up for the challenge. I'm up to be in front of all these different people, and we'll see where that takes me. But yeah, when I think about it now, it makes me nervous. I'm scared. I don't know what to expect. I don't know if I can handle it. I don't know if I'm going to be perfect or if I'm going to mess up or if people are going to like me, but it's all a part of this journey. Luckily, you know, I make music in English, so that reaches to a bigger audience outside of the Philippines. I'm hoping to get to that point. I feel like I deserve it. I've been putting so many years that I deserve to get to that point. And it's really just going to start with, number one, how I write, how that's going to impact people, and how the music's going to sound. So before getting ahead of myself, it's really about making music that people can actually fuck with and actually say that they like.
It's good that really focused on the music and the product versus just, you know, there's a lot of musicians that get lost out there with the popularity contest, with having the coolest Instagram photos and getting as many likes and chasing after that. Told you a long time ago that when I saw you perform a few times and I said, dude, like, you have a lot of energy. The minute you grab the mic, you really catch people's attention. And then you would say something like, you put a lot of effort into the art of performance too. And I think that's really cool to look at versus just having that Instagram image of really going back to the art of creating music, the art of performing, because those types of things you can really feel in real life and it really impacts you, especially for the listeners. Sometimes I made a joke once, Brent. I go, Chris, sometimes you take over an event and it's not your event. It's like Chris shows up to a party and it's like someone, and then Chris just like has fun. And then next thing you know, you turn around and then you see him on stage somewhere and you're like, yo, like
and
energy.
That's not planned too. Like I'm not lurking for the attention. Like, right? I'm like, oh, I can't wait to step on stage because there's a hot girl here. Like, no, it's funny how that happens.
Yeah, you generally enjoy the event and you enjoy the energy. Suddenly you're just like jumping around. And those are one of the good things about artists and performers and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Can I speak on performances before moving on?
Sure.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So one interesting thing I want like the listeners to hear is that when they would interview me, because I take pride, like when you dissect me as a brand, as an artist and musician, that's where I excel. I've always been considered like the Showtime guy, like on the basketball court, on the football field, on track and field. I always was the guy that was shining. I loved it when there was a room full of people watching. This is what sucks about the Filipino music culture is they weren't blessed to have these underground artists or these upcoming artists or these mainstream artists perform regularly weekend after weekend at your local bar, at a basketball arena. So I was blessed to see all of these great acts growing up. What I loved and what I remember about these artists that I watched growing up is when the music wasn't playing in between songs, when they would just talk to us like, yo, who the fuck smokes weed right now? Everyone's cheering, or like, hey, how you guys feeling today? Or has anyone ever been in love? Like when artists talk to you on that personal level, these are the moments I remember as a fan watching my favorite artists growing up. And so that kind of translated to how I felt about performing now as an artist is when people ask me, hey, what do you love the most about performing? I'm like, I love it when the music isn't playing. Like artists really need to understand, like, it's not really about you just performing your music. Because I can get that actually on my own, watching YouTube or playing your Spotify from beginning to the end. It's really about making the crowd feel a part of this whole experience with you. Right. And I'm not sure why the artists that I watch here in the Philippines, no disrespect, but like are lacking that. And I'm not sure. Maybe there's fear. Maybe it's makes you uncomfortable to connect with them on a personal level. You know, I personally love it when an artist would just ask a question like, how you guys feeling tonight? So a lot of the times it's just perform a song, next song, perform the next song, perform the next song. Thank you. The in-betweens, I feel like these younger artists or even seasoned artists like continue to do that. Without the fans, this performance ain't shit.
In terms of who you are as an artist, right? February Bank. How do you come up with a name and what does it mean?
This goes back to me maybe moving a lot and being comfortable with the reset button. You know, I was always comfortable with the reset button. So when I was Manila Money, I noticed my work ethic changed, my personality changed, and my vision changed, where I had no idea what I wanted to do and how to structure it moving forward with that name. So I felt disconnected with that name already. Like I would look at it and it just didn't feel like it was me. Most people will be like, you know what? I built 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. I've been rolling with this name for a couple of years. You know, I can't let it go. I'm just going to continue. I knew like moving forward, that would have been a waste of my time. Now that I felt disconnected with that, here's the hard part. For anyone that's brainstorming and wants to create a name for a company, name for a product, name for an artist, it just doesn't come. So luckily, I'm an Aquarius guy. And whenever I think of February, my birthday's on February 5th. Whenever I think of February, I think of Valentine's Day. It just shows like kind of like my love romantic side. And I've always liked the way that it was spelled, you know, February. And then bank, people ask me, okay, so what's the bank part? So on my very first song of my upcoming album, which is called Baduy, the first song is called Bank. And the reason why I called it that, because that's the first thing I said before I started rapping. I started laughing. I go, bank, right? And I'm like, yo, February, bank. So then after I looked at the two images together, the two words together, I'm like, okay, this kind of looks cool. Like, have you guys ever seen Looney Tunes? When I saw February, bank, I'm like, that reminds me of Montana Max from Tiny Toons. And like when I think February bank, it reminds me of like this young kid, student, sophisticated Ivy League guy that maybe went to Yale, Harvard, you know, with suspenders and cute little backpack. It was me just kind of tapping back into being a student and a kid again. But I've created like this acronym for bank where it's like, because angels never knew, you know, because aliens never knew. So it was just me kind of throwing it out there like, yeah, the aliens seem cool because they're from outer space and they think weird, but like, yo, don't doubt us humans and our humanoids. So for bank, like the acronym was like, because aliens never knew.
Okay, going to sound though, because it's something that we also wanted to pick your brain on. How different would be your sound evolution as an artist from living in the States to making music in Korea? How was your sound there? And then when you first got here as Manila Money, how was your sound as Manila Money? And how is this evolution now as Berry Bang?
So that's a great question. So when I first started, it all started in the bedroom. I would have like a dictionary on one side and a thesaurus on another side. And then like I would try to write in that way where I would just like look up definitions of words and have the source. I'm like, okay, what are other words that mean the same thing as this word? And just like learn how to be a creative writer. And then once I had that, I just experimented with what was comfortable. I'm not sure if you guys know this, but I have a choir background growing up. So growing up, I was a singer. I was singing baritone. You know, I also did musicals where I sang like old school songs. I played Elvis in one musical. So I come from like a singing background. So after learning like to be a creative writer, I experimented with my delivery. I would sing, I would rap, I would kind of yell it. Early stages, it's all over the place. Like you wouldn't really get to understand my style. When I moved to Korea, I was doing underground music, but also I tapped into the K-pop world. So I did a lot of like electro pop and like electronic hip hop, you know? And to me, when I listen to it now, it's cheesy, but it's something that I can play to the adults and like the titas will like kind of move around and dance. Like I come to the Philippines and I'm still experimenting. So like I still don't know. And when I hear this album that I'm going to put out, it's just like a specific vibe that I felt for this moment in time. And I know the follow-up album, which I'm planning on releasing another album before the end of 2020. So I'm kind of structured for 2 albums a year until I can't do it anymore. That's just kind of how my mind is with the structure and like my expectation of myself, like on the work end. But yeah, so even now I don't know. And I think that's the fun thing about being an artist is you can change the way that you sound. You can say things differently. You can make music that's in multiple genres. Being a kid again, like you're just free. And I think it should always feel like that as an artist. I think what changes really the content of your lyrics because of life experience, the things that you've gone through, and also your vision of how you want to impact the people listening. Another thing that scares me, guys, is like this album that's coming out, it's not really for the kids. But I guess that could be wrong because growing up, I was a lyrical kid. Like I was this backpacker who listened to a lot of underground songs. So anything that wasn't on the radio was cool to me. So if you're not ready to listen to a story or listen to my wordplay or listen to lyrics, it's going to be hard to appreciate this upcoming album.
Going back to it, you said it was a vibe. So describe the vibe of your next album.
It was really about going back to how I was in my bedroom when I first started, where all I wanted to do was sound, be clever, create phrases that would make people think. I'm an early 80s baby. I grew up watching MTV Jams, you know, the MTV Countdown, BET, VH1, all of these stations that had music videos, and listening to local radio. Do you remember when you would have cassette tapes? There would be two holes on top, and you could put like pieces of paper on top of that cassette, and you could record the radio live, or you could record shows off of VHS. So I used to like do that. It reminds me of maybe Bone Thugs, because I remember doing this with Bone Thugs because it was fast rapping like when I was young. But I would like play the song, I would rewind it, I would hear 3 or 4 words, I would write it down, that would repeat, right? I would just rewind the song, write down the lyrics, press play, rewind the lyrics, press play. So this is the type of album where you're going to be like, yo, what did Chris say? Oh shit, that's what he meant by that. So that's really what I'm excited about, is like the rewind element of my songs. One thing I am afraid of too is that like I don't have catchy hooks. There's not a lot of hooks on this album. I'm really going back to the true essence of rap, where I rap from the beginning to the end. And I'm not sure if you listened to hip hop back in the day, but it's like the old school mixtapes of like Lupe Fiasco or Lil Wayne and DJ Drama, where it was really just about showing off your wordplay.
Speaking of your new album, you recently just dropped your first song off the album. Do you want to talk about why you dropped it? Just some background about Bye Bye Ruse?
Yeah, well, I mean, just for the title, like I had seen a meme when this whole virus thing kind of like came forward. There was a meme about how Filipinos say the word virus, where it was like virus. So I thought it was clever just to say, you see bye-bye, like, all right, bye virus, like, let's get out of our lives now. So that's what I meant by the title. Now, when it comes to releasing, I had no plans of releasing any song. I just wanted to keep it all a secret and just all release it as one. I kind of got put in this position where I forced myself to release this because I felt like by the time the album comes out, we might not be in quarantine anymore, right? So the relevancy of the track, I just felt like wouldn't be there anymore. It would just be kind of like this past memory. And the reason why I was torn between keeping it a secret and like releasing it was because it's not really my favorite song. And a song for the first time as February Bank under my new name, I kind of wanted to have a bigger impact with a song that was something that I liked a little bit more than Bye Virus. But then I checked myself. I'm like, you know what? This is fitting because other people had been releasing music. We can go to somebody as popular as Drake, like Tootsie Slide. Personally, I didn't think that was the right song. Yes, it became a TikTok hit, but I feel like that's the reason why he released it. Sure, smart for marketing purposes, smart for getting your song viral. But in a sensitive time where people are like questioning life, questioning their future, questioning how they're going to eat, I felt like every artist that was putting out music that didn't relate to what we were going on with right now, I felt like was just not the right move, right? And that's just personal opinion. I felt like the mature side of me came out and said, you know what, instead of trying to grab attention because my song's cool or you can play it at the club or you can turn up to it or dance to it, let me create a song that's something that people could kind of relate to because we're all going through the same thing. So that's why I put it out. I mean, do you guys agree? Like when you see kind of people releasing albums or songs right now, not now because it's starting to light up, it's starting to feel a little bit lighter. But like, let's say the early stages of Corona, like the first month, it just felt weird when people were releasing stuff, right? It felt like it wasn't the right time.
Yeah, it wasn't connected to the world.
The world, right?
What's happening?
I kind of am on the other side of this. I mean, your opinions are correct, but I think for me, it provided something for me to just escape to for the moment. That's where I would take it musically. There's some things I saw in fashion that felt a bit uncomfortable. Like in the fashion industry, that's where I had your feelings. Wherein it's like I would see things being released and posted and I was like, this doesn't feel proper for me, but it was a move, right? So maybe that's how you feel with the music industry.
Yeah.
Also. Yeah.
Right.
I'm going to just move on to talk about your album, your upcoming album. Why did you name it Bedoy?
Like I'm at this stage where I'm okay kind of like teasing myself or like, you know, looking at my flaws, looking at just everything that's not cool about me. So because all the songs don't have like a hook, like a radio structured song where there's a verse and a hook and a second verse and a hook, and I just decided to rap from beginning to the end, like that was so unorthodox. And to me, that was not cool. That's not the cool way to make music right now. That's not the cool way for hip hop to appreciate you right now. And another thing is like I start to tease myself when you listen to the songs. There's one song called Batangas Lo-Fi, right? And at the end of the song, I'm teasing myself for not Tagalog, right? V, I told you this in a different conversation, but like at the end of the song, I'm just like, if I only rap in English and not Tagalog, how would my people understand what I'm about though? Then I got the blood of Bonifacio. Mukha akong gago. Mayabang si Chris, hindi marunong magtagalog. And it's in my alter ego voice. So if you guys listen to Kendrick Lamar, I do a lot of the Kendrick Lamar style of raps in this piece. But I went the Eminem route where I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to connect with the local hip hop community and just the local community here, let me tease myself for not being strong at Tagalog, for not knowing the native language as good as I should. And I'll start by dropping in Tagalog words, but teasing myself with these Tagalog words. And that's my slow kind of transition to making a full-on Tagalog track. And so like the whole concept of Baduy is really like it not being the coolest thing, it not being what you expect. And I just think it's funny. It's just like, it's corny, it's cheesy. And for someone that has tattoos and has like this alpha male image where he's like, oh, hard guy, gangster, whatever, you know, chick, well, whatever you want to like label me as, I feel like calling the album Baduy is going to like make it look like I'm calling myself Baduy, which has a negative connotation to it in a sense. And I'm okay doing that. I felt like it's a short word, it's one word, but it's very impactful because it's like, what does he mean by Baduy? Is his music Baduy? Is he Baduy? Or is he calling other people Baduys? But it's left for interpretation. But it's really because I felt like I didn't go the cool route when it came to making the music for this album.
Yeah, I think the purpose of really good art is just to provoke thinking. Having people think and question just based off the title or what you're putting out, or getting people to think. It's quite interesting, and especially in this time where people can be putting out things for attention, or are we putting out things to create, right? One of the things I wanted to ask, and it goes along with that train of thought on the concept of cool. How have you changed? Because it sounds like you're not as conscious of your image or what people perceived of you. But as an artist, were you self-conscious or did you care about what people thought? And then how are you approaching music now?
I mean, of course, when you're young, you're a bit more vain, you're more cocky than you should, not as humble. But coming from an athletic background and always taking pride in like staying in shape and, you know, being complimented on how my body looked growing up, I use that as a selling point, like younger. Like if you see me, when I see these guys now performing with a shirt off, like I used to do that shit a long time ago. I don't think anyone's ever seen me do that here, but I always wanted to use that element as like, yo, I want to be like this sex symbol. And you think of artists like LL Cool J, like selling his body and his rapping, like my idol, like Andre 3000, he would perform with his shirt off. I focused a lot on that, and it's really weird to admit this, but like, let me focus on being this kind of like sex symbol. And that way, like, that's going to bring more attention to me being a rapper. That changed after a while where I'm like, you know, naturally, I'm still an athlete. You know, I work out all the time. I take pride in my body. But as you get older, like you start to realize like it's really hard to maintain a superstar looking body that you had in your early 20s. Like I'm in my late 30s, ladies and gentlemen. To get rid of this extra like chub, you really got to be on the strictest diet and focus on calories in, calories out. And you got to stay consistent. So it's hard for me to like get back to that point. Like I focused a lot on how my body looked, not my face. Like, you know, it's hard not to be cocky if growing up people would compliment you on like, you know, growing up I got voted best looking. Like when they would vote for the yearbook, best looking, best athlete, best this, you know, everything best, where I'm like, okay. And people always complimenting me on, you're guapo, you have nice eyes. So that gets to your head. As humble as you are, if you keep hearing this shit, you're going to believe that. And so like me, I'm like, yo, let me capitalize on this. Everyone thinks I have nice eyes. Everyone thinks I'm handsome. So let me sell that. Now, the fucked up thing is, or what I've learned about that is I put too much energy into how I looked or how I wanted to be portrayed that it affected the quality of my music. So now I'm finally at a place where I could give a fuck if I'm like super fat with my shirt off on stage, just as long as the music sounds good. So it's gotten me to the point where all I care about is making music that if I was to play it for anybody, I could truthfully say, yo, I'm proud of this song, right? Before, the music was lacking, but I was trying to make sure, oh, maybe I can be a host. Maybe I can have cool pictures on Instagram. Maybe I can look sexy. Maybe I can have a cool music video to compensate for a song that I thought sucked. Now I'm proud of everything that happens. So I think that just kind of comes with being honest with yourself, number one. And once you're honest with yourself about your work, it's really about daily execution. If you pick at it every day, little by little by little, I mean, that's how the universe works, right? It's magic for anybody. It's about these simple things that we execute on a daily basis. Naturally, your skills develop, and naturally you get to the goal that you want, or the goal that you had envisioned in your mind in the first place.
For sure.
I'm gonna first off call you out and say you would not be happy if you had a big belly on stage. Because for sure you would, bro. I'm just joking with that.
No, wait. Let me stop you real quick right there. And that's so true. You know why? Because I even took a screenshot of my Nike running app to post on my Instagram stories that I walked for 10K. So before we started this podcast today, I cleared my mind by walking around BGC, and I hit 6.2 miles, which is 10 kilometers, right? So I agree. I think I was just saying that, but there's no way I'm going to let myself slip like that. I'm not going to be happy.
I know you're not going to.
No.
I'm late 30s too, and I'm just like you. And like, you're trying to hold on to as much of those abs as you can while you can, right?
Yeah.
Just speaking on your routine and what sharpens you daily, what are you doing nowadays? What your routine is from when you wake up to when you start going to work?
Okay, so like before quarantine, it was a little bit different, but I guess I'll speak on now because it's a bit relatable to everyone. The number one thing that's affecting me is like, I am a gym rat. This is 100% true. So I wake up excited every morning knowing that I can have my quick breakfast, take a shit, quick shower. I take a nice warm shower just to wake me up, get my blood flowing, put on my gym clothes, and I go straight to the gym. I look forward to that time because number one, I love fitness, but that's where I get most of my ideas. That's where I'm thinking, who am I going to contact today? What emails am I going to respond to? That's where I'm writing down ideas that I have for songs. And also that's where I'm listening to music. So that's my time. And so to take that away from somebody who looks forward to that every morning, it's really fucked with how I go about my days. Props to everybody that's showcasing their home workouts and being more motivated now, but I just can't work out in a small confined space. I feel like a rat in a cage. I need to move. I need to physically move and take up space. So to not have that, that's been tough. So the first 5-6 weeks, I completely let go. And when I say completely let go, I ate whatever I want. I was putting extra butter on things. I would get a pizza from S&R and take butter and just butter the shit out of a pizza that's already oily. I would eat chocolate and ice cream in bed where I would fall asleep with shit right next to me with my laptop open. That's when it's gross. When you wake up and you have snacks right next to you. So I let myself go and then I snapped myself out of it and I said, okay, I need to do something. So right now I live in an area where it's, people are a bit responsible. Streets are clean and wide. I wake up, I go for a walk, open up my computer, do whatever I can on the computer. And that's really about it. Because what's tough, and I'm not sure if you guys can relate, you can plan and strategize all you want right now. But in order for these things to come into fruition, come to life, we have to meet up as people. People need to also be working, coming together and working. So yeah, you can do that through the internet and working from home, but it's really hard to really, for example, let me give you an example for me. I want to make a music video. How does that work? Am I using my smartphone and just walking around in an empty street? And of course, yes, you can get creative, but there's only so much you can do on your own. So I, just like you guys, I'm trying to still figure out how I'm going to deal with this. For me, I feel like it's going to end soon, at least for us to get a little bit more freedom than we have now. So I'm kind of just letting time pass, being as productive as I can, hoping that this shit will change. But if they extend this longer than what I'm thinking in my head to the end of the year, I really don't know how I'm going to deal with things.
We need to wrap up our podcast in a bit, but kind of tying that back up, When it comes to like your music and the future, what do you foresee for yourself?
Before music, I always wanted to be a professional athlete. Like growing up, I want to be a professional athlete, focusing on all the way until like senior year in high school. I knew being a professional athlete, your time is really, really short for being a professional athlete, especially if it's a physical contact sport, which I mean, most sports are. But when you think about music, is there a timeline on that? Do you only make music from when you're young until maybe you're 30? Or do you push it till you're 40? Can you still make the same type of impactful music like when you're 60? I mean, I guess you can, really, right? Like if nobody knew that you made that song and liked it and they had no idea you were 60, I guess music, you can impact people at any age, which is comforting to know that there isn't time running out when it comes to this career and to in this path. So the ultimate goal is to know that, hey, you know what? I was able to survive properly doing something that I love to do. And it's not like I've never made good money. It's not like, I'm here broke and struggling. It's just, I want to be able to say that, hey, I'm a bit comfortable. And this is what young artists really need to expect. You could be hot shit now. You could have a lot of followers. You could have a lot of engagement on your post, but that doesn't mean you're going to make money, young kid. Be prepared that this whole image of being a rapper and being cool, like, life changes. Are you still going to be a rapper 10 years from now? Who knows? But like when you get to this stage, like you gotta, these are the types of things you want to accomplish as an experienced musician, is knowing that you were able to put money in, provide for a family, and have some money in the bank for something that you've been pushing to do for a big chunk of your life.
The last question I asked Gabe, and you sort of answered it a little bit now, was if you were to like give advice to your younger self getting into what you're getting into, what would you tell your younger self, like in hindsight?
I have no regrets with life. I look back at all the good and the bad, no regrets. But if I was to talk to my younger self, it was really just to like, yo, this is a part of the music and entertainment industry that, a lot of parents, older people kind of look at it being a bad thing, especially if you're trying to find a companion and a partner in life. And somebody said, like, for example, for me, I can speak for me. Like if you're dating a girl and girl's father's like, okay, well, what does he do? And I understand that question because I would do the same if I was father. Oh, he raps. And that has a different type of effect on an adult, especially a father of a girl that you're dating, because that is not saying you're a doctor or a lawyer or, like architect or whatever it is, software engineer, a rapper. That is connected to this life that you really can't avoid, like entertainment and music, especially hip hop. There's these three kind of evils that kind of lurk around, which is sex, drugs, and money. No matter what, you're going to be around that, being a part of any type of scene, whether it's fashion, the movie industry, entertainment, music, you're around that. So if I'm talking to the young Chris, I would have warned myself about some of the situations that would come up regarding all of this stuff, and to make better decisions when these types of temptations, when they were lurking around, like to not really get so sucked into that type of world. And I think as a young artist, especially if you go from being underground to where only your friends listen to your music, to where you're performing in front of thousands of people and like going on a tour and like performing in different places, like you just really don't know how to deal with, number one, all that attention and all the money and like partying that kind of is thrown into that whole mix of coming up as an artist, So that's the biggest thing I would tell myself is like, morning, Chris, this is what's going to happen. Because I never had professional musicians in my family. So nobody taught me these things. I didn't have an older brother. I'm the oldest child that would taught me these things. So I had to be that guy that just made mistakes along the way. And no regrets, because it's kind of shaped my personality and my character now. It can give me a lot of power to like impact the youth, like moving forward, to kind of help them. And maybe that's where this can go, is for me to give back to the youth and be like, yo, here are some of the things that aren't so glamorous that you should be looking out for moving forward if you're really about this life.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I thank you, Chris, for coming on the show. February Bank. Listen or watch out for his next album dropping soon. Just want to say thank you again for your time, all the inspirational stuff that you shared with everyone through your experiences and your whole life journey. I learned a lot. I see a lot of myself in you, like just being and having that common ground of being that Filipino that moved over from North America, trying to find their way in the Philippines. It just also like validated a lot of the thoughts and a lot of my insecurities as well in that process. And it's not just me thinking that way, so it's for everyone that's trying to just find their way, whether you were born in North America or you're in the Philippines, and just trying to discover yourself. Vicky, what else did you learn from the episode?
What you said really resonated as well, right? It's a journey, and looking for, your identity and the things that you planned that didn't happen, that you took a chance because you saw this word on a board. It's the little moments in life that kind of stir you in a certain direction, and to be able to look back on it, come up with all these lessons and stories, and it makes life more richer and fulfilling when you can look back and reminisce on things. And to be able to share that, and to share the nuggets of wisdom with the next generation, with your community, with people in music. What I really loved about what Chris was saying, it's his approach to not just music, but also life and continuous self-improvement. So it was really inspiring. And I hope all of you guys listening on this podcast enjoyed it as well. Brent and I are enjoying this process. We love doing these interviews for you. So that's pretty much it. So Brent, take it away.
Also follow at Next Theory, follow myself at Brent Javier, and of course follow Vicky at Victoria_Herrera. Just stay tuned because we got a lot of fire coming for you guys, and hopefully you guys are learning with us and we can all be better from it.
All right. Bye guys.
Peace.